Well, good evening and welcome back to the Royal Club. Unfortunately, I can't record it for some strange reason, but I'm going to download it from another source, but that's fine. So thank you for joining us from all over the world. I know people from Pakistan are watching, people from India are watching, and people from Africa are watching, and they send me wonderful messages. Thank you very much. Keep up the good messages. Also, if you have questions, of course, you can ask them. We will be more than happy to respond to you. If you have prayer requests or any questions, please post them. We will get to it. But tonight we will talk about, let me pull up my beautiful notes here. Be quick to listen and slow to speak. Wouldn't that be a change around here? Well, this message is inspired by people who are indulging in oversharing. Now, what is oversharing? Oversharing is when you say more than is appropriate in a given situation or to a specific person, or you post more than you should. Like you post about your lunch, where you're gonna go, where you were yesterday. It's like no one needs to know all those details, okay? So that's oversharing. And there are many reasons for it, but we are not going to go into all of them because that would be a 2 weeks program. So it is. I mean, so there's a lot of people with a lot of problems, but many of them manifest in oversharing. It's like you just so compulsively have to share every detail of your life. Well, guess what? You don't, because number one, no one is interested. Number two, it's not all for everyone else. Okay, share it with those couple of people that you are, very good friends with. Hopefully you have some friends, and the rest you might want to keep to yourself. Okay, it's not wise to overshare. It can be very harmful, and we're going to go back to that. Why is it harmful? So this can manifest also person to person, when people just walk up to somebody, maybe in a social setting, and then they begin to talk, and listen nothing. They don't go there to communicate like a two-way conversation. They go there to give a monologue about how they're doing. So imagine somebody's asking, how are you doing? And then you begin to tell them, oh, you know what, this, that, and all the problems. That's oversharing. People don't need to hear that. Okay, if you are good friends with someone, I suggest you, even then, you would keep it to the bare minimum. If they would ask more questions, then of course you are free to elaborate on your many problems. But more than that, maybe you should just be quick to listen and slow to speak. That's always the best solution. So on social platform, of course, we see how people are posting their breakfast, their cats, their dogs, for everything they do. I mean, they went shopping, and they just have to give you an up-to-date, a live update on what they are doing. But isn't it interesting that it used to be that people used to get angry when you read their specific private diary, but now they are putting their private diary out there, and they are mad if you don't click on it. They are mad if you don't share it, if you don't read it. So it's like it's the direct opposite. So it's like people want you to be into their personal business for some reason, and it's not a good thing. That's called oversharing. So let's just see, why is it not a good idea? Oversharing is when you say something that is inappropriate. Now, what do I mean about inappropriate? Inappropriate can mean very different things in very different settings. But inappropriate, I would call also when you share details to people that don't need to hear them. So that would be inappropriate, because you want to share things that are uplifting, things that are relevant, things that would edify the listener. And the Bible is very specific about it. And I'm going to put up that specific verse. Proverbs 10:19. And I want to read in different translations, because it's a very good one. Proverbs 10:19. King James Version. Actually, let's do
Proverbs
10:19. Let's do the English Standard Version first. When words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lips is prudent. Well, maybe that's not exactly today's English, so let's look for another translation. When words are many, sin is unavoidable, but he who restrains his lips is wise. So isn't that interesting that people of few words, the Bible considers wise, as opposed to those who talk a lot, whether online, chatting, or posting, because now we have this option. In the Bible days, we didn't have that option, so they couldn't specify that. But words are words, whether you are writing them down, posting them online, telling it on the telephone, or face-to-face. I mean, we talk about oversharing. So oversharing can take many forms, but the point is you are inappropriately sharing a lot of information about yourself that people really don't need to know, and they're not interested to know, trust me. They don't want to know that. So I like how it says that when you use a lot of words, when you talk a lot, in other words, sin is unavoidable. It's unavoidable. But he who restrains his lips is wise. In another translation, it says, when words are many, okay, we already had that. Too much talk leads to sin. This is the New Living Translation. Too much talk leads to sin. Be sensible and keep your mouth shut. I like that. Straight and to the point. New American Standard. When there are many words, wrongdoing is unavoidable. But one who restrains his lips is wise. See, it's interesting that all of the translations agree that he who restrains his lips are wise. They use this specific verse, no matter what translation you look at, it's always wisdom is connected to people who don't use too many talk. And on that note, I want to remind you that have you noticed that you never get into trouble when you keep your mouth shut, when you say nothing. It's always when you talk a lot, that's when you get into trouble, isn't it? Because somehow things slip out. Maybe not even about yourself, maybe things that about other people that you were not supposed to share, but just slipped out. And people even have this expression, oh, it just slipped out. I didn't want to say that, I'm so sorry. But it's like this. Once you said things, you cannot take them back.
Yeah.
Even if you apologize, it's good to apologize, it's good to apologize, but you have to understand that you cannot take your words back. And that person or the people that you share them with will remember. You can be sure of it. They will remember. So it's best to keep your counsel to yourself. Okay, so obviously people don't like people who talk too much. Number one, you're taking up too much time. Even if it's in a Zoom situation. Now I'm teaching, so of course I'm the one who's sharing. But let's say we have this sharing session, not here, we don't have this problem. But earlier we had people here who just talk. And it's like, number one, I don't even understand the point they were trying to make, honestly. Even after several listening, you would just rewind it and try to see what was the point this person was trying to make. And there's none. That's what you notice. People who have actually something to say, they don't even have to use paper. But if you use paper, that's a good thing. Nothing wrong with that. But I'm just saying, even if you teach, you don't go in all kinds of, rabbit trails. You try to keep to the track or the subject that you have on the topic you have listed, because you want to respect people's attention. You don't want people's attention to be dragged all over the place. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but mostly you want to keep those points, keep to those points. So this is one of the things that when you teach, you especially have to take some notes for yourself, to gather your thoughts, and then you go by those points. Usually I do that. If you're so gifted that you don't need the pointers, it's fine, you can do that, but it's very rare that someone can do that. So to have a good list is better than, rabbit trailing even when you're teaching, let alone when you are sharing. So oversharing, but okay, I want to give some scenarios when oversharing can be harmful. Oversharing can make others feel uncomfortable. Now, imagine a situation where you are talking face to face. I don't think people can be so uncomfortable when you are posting things because people just going to scroll by. They're going to just scroll on and they don't care about what you say. They're not going to respond. But if you are in a social setting or when you're on the telephone and then you just talk, and a person cannot get a word in edgewise, that's a problem, because a conversation needs to be that, a conversation, an interaction with people. But it's only you monopolizing the conversation. That's not very thoughtful. That's not very kind. And eventually people will avoid you because they don't want to hear all that. I actually have one person in my life, or I used to have one person in my life. He's not even a friend, but he's just so alone. Well, wonder why. That every time you would ask him how he's doing, literally, you would just ask him, how are you doing? And he would just say negative, and he would just never stop. I mean, you can't get away from him without being rude because he would just talk all the time. So it's very rare when a man overshares, but I know at least one who does. So he has some mental situations, I'm sure, but it's not a good thing. And I'm not the only one who doesn't like to listen to him. Everybody else, they stopped listening to him years ago, but it's not a good thing. And we were trying to tell him to kind of keep to himself and don't have to share all the details, especially if it's negative. It's always negative somehow. Everything he sees is negative for him. So it's the way he sees things, the way he sees life. So not a good thing. So he is very much avoided by everyone, and nobody even dares to ask him how he's doing, because then he will tell you how he's doing, and it's never good. So oversharing can make others feel uncomfortable, which may lead them to avoid being around you. I've seen that happening. Oversharing is like floodlight. It's overwhelming and leaves the listener blinking in the overpowering light. Can you see that picture? It's like you flood that person with that floodlight that was never meant to be blinding him, but then it's like blinding him, and that's all he sees. Like what? It's just too much information. And we also have that expression, too much information. Thank you. We don't need to hear that. And then maybe the person understands and kind of, takes back on the sharing, or maybe he won't, and then all you can do is kind of avoiding them. So it's not a good thing. You don't want to be avoided, and that's the best way to be avoided, when you keep sharing and sharing and sharing and just never stops. So always remember that once you say something, you can never take it back. So it's better to keep things to yourself until you actually find a person you want to share things with. But even then, don't overshare. Don't overburden people with your life. Okay, we got to social. We have to talk about social media because today is just so prevalent in our lives. So it's something that we meet every day, and you can see other people. I'm sure you have people in your life that you perhaps follow, and sometimes they just overshare, and it's not important at all what they share. If you overshare via social media, you may damage your reputation, very important, and hurt professional opportunities. Now, how does that play out? This is how it plays out. Many job recruiters and hiring managers will check the prospective hire's social media accounts. That's what they do. At some point in the evaluation process, if you're an oversharer, your social media accounts may reveal things about you that you wouldn't want them to know in a professional setting. It's true, happens. So this is one of the ways to hurt yourself. Okay, oversharing can also very quickly divulge into gossip. Once you are known as someone who gossips, people may be reluctant to share aspects of their personal lives with you because they don't want that to be posted somewhere. That's the thing. When people talk about themselves a lot, chances are they are talking about you a lot as well, because it's a compulsory talking. That's what they do. Not a good thing. But the Holy Spirit can patch up your mess, so don't worry about it. I'm just calling your attention to something that I have noticed in people. So it is best to keep to yourself. It is best to keep yourself a mystery than an open book. People don't need to know everything about you. Also make sure that the topic of your communication is on a higher level. Now, what do we mean? We are Christians, and we are leaders. So number one, our life should be exemplary to others. When they see that you talk a lot, they might take it as a cue. Oh, well, he's talking a lot, she's talking a lot, so I guess it's okay. That's what I should do. I take it as an example. Well, you just set a very bad example. Remember Philippians 4:8. Finally, brethren, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, that's what I wanted to get to. If anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Now, you cannot think about such thing if you keep saying something else. So the two are connected. Whatever you think about is what you are going to pronounce it with your mouth. So the two are connected. You can easily put in, these are the things you should talk about. You can easily replace the think with the talk or share. These things you should be sharing. So share things that are excellent. Share things, whether it's in written form or verbally, face-to-face. Share things that are excellent, things that are admirable, things that are praiseworthy, things that is ministering grace to the hearer. Ephesians 4:29. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to edify others, that it may minister grace to the hearers. Now, does your talk, oversharing, minister grace to the hearers? Absolutely not. Of course it's not, because they feel overburdened. They feel burdened by your oversharing. And also the topic of your sharing is just, it has to be on a higher level. There are some things you don't need to talk about, what you ate, unless you want to share the recipe. Okay, I understand some kind of setting will call for the recipe. That's fine. But usually, I see people posting their lunch, breakfast, dinner. No one cares. What you ate, lunch, dinner, whatever, it's not going to help me in my daily life. Okay, it's not going to be on a high level, let alone anything else that people might try to share. Okay, it is a sign of immaturity and attention seeking if someone talks too much. Also, when they share something in writing. So I'm going to take it as a blanket statement. Talk, I understand. Under this, I'm going to put the social sites sharings as well, because it's the same thing, the same spirit. Oversharing is a sign of immaturity and attention seeking. Some people are compulsive oversharers, compulsively talk too much. They don't like quiet. They don't feel comfortable with quiet. If you don't feel comfortable with quiet, you're going to talk just to break the silence. It's not a good motivation for you to speak. You obviously have nothing to say because it's going to be empty talk. Very, very tiring when you have to listen to people's empty talk, which is why I'm always hearing, I'm listening to something else. I always walk around with my earphones. I don't want to listen to empty talk. So a wise man is usually quiet and rarely talks. But when he does, everyone listens. Now, if you keep talking all the time, people are not going to listen to you anymore. They're going to just, what? He's talking again, she's talking again. No, thank you. We heard that. They know that you have nothing important to say. But when you keep quiet and just once in a while, you talk the right words. Also, Proverbs says, and we discussed it the other day, that the right word at the right time is like a golden apple on a silver platter. So it is better to be quiet and thought to be stupid than open your mouth and dispel all doubts. I hope you got that. That's a very funny quote. Some people keep talking and oversharing, men and women these days, more and more men as well. Interesting, isn't it? Because they seek attention. They just crave attention. It is possible that when they were little, they did not get enough attention. So now that they are adults, it just manifests itself this way. It is not an excuse, it's just an explanation. It is also possible that people were not given enough attention when they were little. So that's how they try to kind of sometimes people ask questions you don't want to answer to. So that's they are almost trying to get you to share things you don't want to share.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to share more than you want to share. You don't have to share anything you feel uncomfortable with, because that's, you know, some people who are oversharers, they like other people to be oversharers too. If they talk too much information about themselves, they expect you to do the same. And you don't have to fall for that. You don't have to take the bait. When this happens, try using a phrase, oh, it's a long story. So then they understand that they don't need to. Or you can redirect the conversation. Not everyone has to have access to your personal things and experiences in life. Okay. How do we overcome oversharing? You can be still authentic and yet not oversharing. Stick to the point of the question or the conversation. Don't go into unnecessary details. That's the key. Some people, I just stop asking, and we just discussed it. I just stop asking any questions because they are going to tell me their whole life story. And they never stop. That's their part. So one of the ways you can stop oversharing is you can be more focused on listening and slow to speak. It's best to ask questions during the course of a conversation and listen to learn rather than planning your response. One of the ways to do is ask questions. The other thing, you can think before you speak. What are you going to share? What are you going to share about yourself? Or especially if you plan to talk about others, is this a good report? Is this excellent in conversation? Is it going to build the other person up or the person I'm about to share something about? You know, these things you want to think before you open your mouth. That's a good idea. Before you share a story with someone, think about how it will benefit to them, how it will benefit them to know this information you're about to share, whether it's about yourself or about the situation. And also, if you're not sure about that information, it's best if you don't share it. Mm-hmm. It's best if you don't share it, because you can put bugs into people's ears, and then all of a sudden you just started a rumor and you didn't even want to do that. But sometimes that's what happens. Oh, you know what I heard? I'm not even sure about this information, but I want to share this. No, if you're not sure, don't share it. And it's usually negative information when it starts like this. So basically what you want to do, you want to tailor the story you're about to share to that specific person's interest or that specific person's, you know, depending on what kind of relationship you are with them. Not everybody needs to be in your inner circle. It's also a good idea to kind of look inwardly and find out why you want to overshare. Is this because you're uncomfortable with the silence? Is this because you feel that people are expecting you to share something about yourself? That could be all kinds of reasons. Maybe certain people trigger you. It's possible that certain people, in the presence of certain people, you tend to overshare. You tend to say more than you actually wanted to share. That's also possible. So maybe you need to keep away from that person for a while. Also, you want to read the room. You want to read people. You want to read people's micro expressions, their body language, and you want to see whether or not they feel uncomfortable with you sharing or with you even talking. So you want to be sensitive. When it comes to social media, it's a very good idea to read written communication before sending. Rather read it. 2 times, 3 times, 4 times before you press the enter.
Yeah.
It's best if you are able to wait for a while between writing an email or communicating on social platforms or text messaging before sending it, because sometimes, you know, you are in a mood to say things you don't really mean, or maybe it's too much information. And again, it's always a good guideline to say less than what you could be saying. Because if the person is interested and the person is worthy of your trust, it's okay to share something more down the road. But you don't have to dump it on that person like a waterfall. It's just too much. Most people don't know what to do with information anyway, so you can re-edit your writings, which is a very good thing, you know, a very good benefit of written communication, as opposed to when you just blurt things out. That's not a good thing. As I said, notice other people's body language. That would be a good idea. It's a good indication for you to say whether it's, you know, you can develop your social skills that way. And see when you start sharing too much personal information with someone. And basically you can just kind of back off. But again, it's a good idea to ask the Holy Spirit to fix this for you. If this seems to be your problem, or maybe you haven't noticed that this is your problem. But again, you know, you want to read the room, you want to read the people you are talking with, and you don't want to always monopolize the conversation. I know people who are oversharers, and I know people who just talk. And really, there's no end to it, and there's no beginning to it. And it's like you don't even know what the person said, because the person just talks this way, that way. It's like it's a whole gibberish. And maybe the person is intelligent, but you will think that the person is not intelligent because the person just all over the map, all over the place, and there's not one sentence the person would finish. And I know people like this. That's I can say so in detail, because it's like I'm picturing that person in my mind. It's like I don't even know what she was saying, because it's just all over the place, and she never stops. She never ever stops. She is like this in person, she's like this on online, and maybe nobody ever told her that this is not a good thing. Maybe she thinks it's normal. That's the other thing. If you never get a feedback, then you think this is normal. But what I'm saying is, try to read other people. Are you monopolizing the conversation? I'm not talking about teaching. I'm talking about a conversation, a social setting. Are you the one who's always talking? I mean, you ought to know. You ought to be able to tell that you are the one who's always talking. It's like if someone comes into, like if somebody is listening to this whole situation from another room, and the person said, you know what? I only heard your voice. I didn't even notice that anybody else was in the room, because all I heard was your voice. Well, if that's in a social setting, and if that's the norm that you notice around yourself, that's not a good thing. So these things you can change about your behavior. So I want to close with this thought. Talking is great art. Knowing when to stop is even greater. And that's what I wanted to share with you today.
Thank you.
It's open.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I can tell you, I'm
Sure.
one of those people that fits this perfectly. I love
Oversharing, you? No.
Oh, I love to talk. Absolutely.
You're so quiet.
Yeah, you know, there are many people when I'm learning from someone, when I know another person has a lot to say that will help me and that I can add to the conversation to help others as well, I'm very quiet. But at work, I find that I do have a tendency to talk a lot. Part of it is that the people there don't, when we're gathered together as a group, often people kind of feel awkward when it's silent. And so I will keep conversations going, usually bring up ideas, bring up thoughts, what I heard about this, what I heard about that.
It doesn't sound like oversharing to me, what you just said. It doesn't sound like oversharing.
But then
you're a good conversationalist. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, and I think that's very true. And then at the same time, though, as the conversations go, sometimes I catch myself sharing a bit too much, maybe a little more often than I ought, you know. Yeah, just like you said, check body language and that kind of thing. And often I know because the whole room goes quiet and I'm like, okay, did I say something really that really touched the hearts of everyone? Or did I say
Well, I have a
something
hard
that I
time believing that about you, but whatever,
yeah, I
whatever
mean,
resonates for you.
maybe I'm wrong. I mean, but that's yeah, and I think too, like I stuttered for so long as a child
Mm,
that I was embarrassed to say anything ever. And then, but I would listen to my mom, who is an amazing conversationalist. And then as I got older and I got more confident and my stuttering started to go away, that I just wanted to talk all the time. I
good for
found
you.
myself wanting to do that. So yeah, but I think for me, what really stood out as you were talking was the body language and I think often the silence when a conversation is going and somebody says something and suddenly everything goes quiet. A person needs to recognize, okay, stop for a moment. What was just said and what's happening right now, and see uh, if you said something that maybe struck a nerve with people and maybe we should just back off a little bit, or whether people are just thinking about what you're saying or whatever. And I think it's quite important because I've seen conversations go ugly of where people might get mad, people might get defensive, people might whatever because you kept the conversation going. And it's usually best to just stop and at least take a break for a moment. If you have a glass of water or something, take a drink
Not
and just stop
a
and
drink, just a drink.
yeah, I don't know.
Just wanted to clarify it for the people.
Yes, yes,
Those
yes,
who
yes.
don't watch us, they just listen, maybe on podcast or something.
Mm.
They
Take a
talk about
sip of your
drinks,
glass
like
of
drinks.
water or juice or whatever you have, coffee. Yeah. So yeah.
But having said that, I mean, obviously you know yourself better, but let me know you. But it never struck me like someone who would overshare. Rather, you feel you almost like you're more reserved. But then I guess in different situation, everybody behaves differently, especially with different people around. So if you felt you need to check yourself in this department, sure, whatever.
Mhm.
But I also think that I really admire people who know how to communicate and
Right.
how to carry a conversation. Just like you said about your mother, and obviously you take it after her. So I
Mhm.
think it's a great art. It's a great art because in people in old times when didn't have the television or any of these gadgets, people were gathering around, doing housework and things, and somebody would be actually a professional storyteller. So
Mhm.
it's an art
Mhm.
indeed.
Right.
So a lost art, I must say, a lost art. Most people don't
Right.
know how to talk anymore because all they do is, emoji here,
Yes.
emoji there,
Yeah.
and no words. So
Yes.
I mean, I admire, I had a wonderful, wonderful teacher. And I even thought about it, just this phenomena that growing up, I had this wonderful, very educated teacher, a music teacher. And he also taught music history in the musical academy. And I was very, very blessed to have studied under him. And growing up, it didn't strike me the following, but when I listened, because he was very famous, so now he's gone, but we have his recordings, YouTube and all that. And now I'm listening and I'm amazed how beautifully he spoke.
Mm.
Not a word was misplaced. He didn't go none of these. I mean, he would talk for hours and every sentence was absolutely complete. I have never met anybody like this,
Right.
ever. But see, when I was growing up, as a child, I was in his class from the age of 8 until I was 15. But that was normal to me. But now I'm looking around, it is so not normal. It's just genius. And I'm listening to his stuff just because these complete sentences. He would start a sentence and it actually had an end. And then he would
Right.
start another one and that also take you somewhere. And there was nothing in between, And nowadays it's like people can barely pronounce their own name.
Right.
No, really sad. So it's an
Yeah.
art, a lost
It
art.
is. Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
it is an art
Yeah.
for sure.
Mm. Yeah.
I find too, a person who reads a lot, if they can
Yes,
take
reading
that into
helps.
conversation, that
Reading
they
helps.
like Annette, my wife, she's amazing with that. She's an avid reader. She's reading all the time. And then we'll have a conversation and she'll keep it going for a while and then she'll come up with a word and I'll say, you made that up. And now we're both running to the dictionary to see. And sure enough, there it is. I'm like, what?
I like that. So I'm guessing she always wins in Scrabbles, right?
Yeah, we don't actually play that game, but I think if we would, she would probably win. Yes,
Yeah.
I would agree.
But that's another way to to expand your vocabulary in whatever language. Scrabble is a good game.
Yeah.
Makes you think.
Right. It's very interesting. Talking is great, and knowing to stop is greater.
Knowing when to stop is greater.
And it's I always be careful what I post on at Facebook. And I have two moments of the last 2 weeks I can share. Was one person, he said, oh, it's God Almighty, blah blah blah. And only what I write to him is, if you want to talk to me, you can reach my number on Messenger. I don't want to react on his thing if God's mighty or not. I know how God is, but I don't want to share it to all the
Yeah,
public on Facebook, you know.
yeah.
And second was yesterday, a woman, she said, oh, brave. That's, yeah. Many times in Holland, Facebook, pray for me.
Only in Holland.
Only in Holland, not
Really?
in Budapest, not in Canada, not in Germany, but in Holland. Pray for me. And then people think if there are 100 people pray, then it will fixed, you know. So, and she wrote, it's storming in me. So only I wrote, well, why come the wind from? And you
Why
can
is
text
that
me
storm?
on Messenger and Jesus say storm be still. But you
Yes.
can text me. And then she was gone. It was all the message was out of Facebook. Because I try to connect people with God,
Yeah.
you know. That's what I want on Facebook. Yeah.
Well, some people just want attention, I think, isn't it? They don't really want help.
Yeah.
You try
Yeah.
to help or tell them what to do, they don't like to hear that. So
Yeah.
my opinion, it's like a wasting of time.
Yeah, and a friend of us, she's a woman, and if I call her, then she talk for 1 hour, and then on the end, they, oh, okay, I have listened, but that's not my goal. You know, I
Yeah.
want
So
to.
it's my calling.
It's not my calling, but
Yeah.
well, I take it for an hour so that she's happy, but it's not what I want. So I try to sow some seeds in that 1 hour talking, and maybe, and most times it happened. Then there come a time she's still, and then I
I have
repeat
noticed with
and I repeat
Apostle,
my. Okay.
I have noticed with Apostle, that of
Yeah.
course, people come to him for help, and he doesn't let them talk.
That's right.
He always takes the
I know.
contact immediately. And I think this is that, obviously we talk about every kind of social setting, but the specific one that you mentioned, when people come to you for help, don't let them talk for long.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you don't need to hear their whole life story. And if you keep listening, they will tell you their whole life story.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it will
right.
not help them, and you don't need to hear it, isn't it?
No, and
And they need you to talk as opposed to you need them to talk. You don't need them to talk. They need your words. They need
Yeah.
your wisdom. That's why they come to you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you need to stop them, in fact,
Yeah,
because
so-
you are
so,
taking time away from someone else who is coming. Imagine you have a line of people waiting for, and every one of them will be sharing their whole life story. You're never gonna get to the end of it.
Nope.
No.
So,
No.
that's why we asked the 3 questions. What was your problem? Are you healed? Do something you couldn't do before, remember?
I remember.
Whenever I train people,
I
I
remember.
always tell them, don't let people
Yeah.
talk and don't give them the microphone, because they would grab the microphone
Yes.
and they would not let it go. And everything is on camera, and it would look bad on camera if you take it away from them. It's best not to give it, just hold it there. It's fine, and then eventually you have the power to take it away in terms of, okay, now I'm talking and I'm going to give it to you.
Yes.
The advice that you came here for.
No,
and,
that's it's in public, this is private, personal talk to me,
Yeah, but also
then I discover,
same
yes,
way.
but then I discover, I say, do you want to listen to me? And then I keep silence, and then I will have a response of the person, and then.
But she doesn't want to listen to you.
Yeah, I wouldn't even ask this question. I would just, okay, stop.
Okay.
Yes.
This is what you do.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is what you do.
Yeah.
If you want to change the situation, this is what you do.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would just tell them to stop.
That's
He
a
called
very,
you, she called you, they came for help. This is the help. I don't need you to talk. You need me to talk. You need my words.
yeah.
That's
right.
why you came here to hear my words of wisdom. Here's my
Yeah.
words of wisdom. First of all, stop
Yeah.
talking. Second, try listening. Third, take notes.
Yeah, right. That's
And
very
you're probably
helpful.
not the first one and the only one they keep talking to. You're just one of those people that they keep talking
Yeah.
to. You see, and all of them talking, it never helped them. So they
No.
need to realize that this leads absolutely nowhere. You
Yeah.
keep telling your personal business to people because you are trying to get help, which I understand on one level, but it hasn't helped you so far.
Yeah.
It just drags the other people down. So
That's
for
right.
once in your life, you need to stop and listen. And this is what you do with your situation.
Mhm.
And then you come back and report to me and we'll see where we are.
Yeah,
So you follow
Thank
up on that.
I follow up. Of course I do. Of
Well,
course.
Alexander is very nice to people.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm not. That's what I'm telling you.
Didn't want to say
I
that,
have no
but
such
okay.
problem. You need to know this about me. If you don't want a response, don't come to me. If you're sensitive, don't come to me because I'm not going to tiptoe around. I don't have the
Yeah.
time. And above all, it doesn't help you. I
Yeah.
believe in anything that helps. But I'm telling you from, I don't know, hundreds of years of experience that it doesn't help.
Mm-mm.
Being nice to people in terms of what I mean by nice is tiptoeing around people. You know what? I'm going to listen to you because you're in trouble. Well, if you need my help, this is how you're going to get my help. But if I keep hearing the same words you've been telling everybody else, and you yourself are the best example to tell me it doesn't work, that's why you're here. So let's change something about this.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
I will come.
And if they understand that you're trying to help them, I'm trying to tell you, give you advice, what you came here for, that I'm sure they will not be upset when you cut in.
Yes. Yes, and well, you will have soon very good reports from me about this.
Good, okay. I expect nothing less from you.
Thank you.
There's an example in Job. Job 2. These are the friends of three friends of Job. And they made an appointment together to come to show him sympathy and comfort him. And when they saw him from a distance, they did not recognize him, and they raised their voices and wept. And they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads toward heaven. And they sat with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his suffering was very great.
Wow.
I think this is amazing.
I think so, yeah.
Of course, afterwards they started to talk and try to speak for God.
Yeah.
But this attitude of I don't know what to say, because you are in such a
Yeah.
horrible situation.
Yeah, he lost everything and everyone except his wife, and all in one time. So
Yes.
really,
Yes. And what I
sometimes there
learned
are no
from,
words to say.
beg your pardon, I was
Sometimes there are no words to say.
That's true. There are times that you don't know what to say. And what I learned from our men of God is that you never talk before greatness.
Mm.
I,
That's right.
Yeah.
I am very aware when I am with him that I listen,
Absolutely.
because I'm aware of his greatness,
Yes.
and not to put him on a pedestal, but he amazes me every day.
Yeah.
Again. So I don't have to talk when I hear him, actually, because I want to learn. And actually I have a lot to learn. I'm 76, but I have a lot to learn. Really.
We all do.
Yeah.
Yes, me too. Yeah.
But this is what I found of these friends, sitting there for 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him. But they saw that his suffering was very great. And I think
Go ahead.
those are friends, you know.
Yes, those are friends. Yeah, there's this saying that if you, one of the ways you know that you are in a very close relationship with someone, when you can be silent, you can both be silent in each other's presence, and you don't feel the need to talk.
Right.
And I think it's a very good like a barometer, like it's a very good way to measure how comfortable you feel, or how close do you feel in each other's presence, but you don't feel the need to talk. So I think some people are oversharing because they just can't bear the silence, but not all silence is bad.
No,
that's true.
There are very rich silence. Like imagine when you are in a worship session and there's silence. There's this very rich for silence.
Yeah.
And you don't feel the need to talk. Nobody wants to talk. And it's just rich and it's silence. And of course, there are awkward silence and there are stressful and tension silence, but I'm not talking about those. So silence in and of itself is not a bad thing. So we don't have to be afraid of silence, is what I'm saying. And there's the other thing I wanted to share, but I have to post this picture. But there's this, I posted it a while ago. There's this dog. And he has this a collar, you know, sometimes when he has some problems, you have to put a collar on the animal, whether it's a cat or
like
dog.
a cone.
Yeah, like a cone.
Yeah.
And the cat, who is a good friend of him, he just sits in that cone with the dog. And there's this caption that I think like the best friend is when they see that you are in trouble and they don't say a word, they just go there and sit with you. I have to post it so you would understand. But I love that picture. It's just so beautifully describes that really animals know how to treat each other, even though they are not of the same species, you know. One of them is cat, the other one is a dog, yet they understand that the other person is in the other dog, the other animal is in trouble. And they just want to be with them and just show their support, but they don't have to talk, they don't have to play, they can just be there. And that in and of itself is a comfort.
Yes.
Like for Job, they just sat there, they didn't do anything, they didn't pray. They just said that they were just with him, kept him
Yes.
with them.
I think it's sometimes very important to be with someone. I remember a friend of mine. She was in a very difficult situation, and she was addicted to alcohol, and she thought that by drinking too much in the night, she would finally fall asleep and not being awake. And that it would seem like her. Well, anyways, it was. She actually did not want to come out finally out of the coma, and she was in the hospital, and I decided just to sit with her and to silently. I mean, I had a book with me, but I just be there, and I think she really has felt it that I was there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I couldn't talk to her, just a little bit like blessing, but not more, But be with her in her last hours, that was very important. I thought it was important, actually.
I believe that
Mhm.
too.
Mhm.
Yes,
It was freedom.
yeah. Remember, Thea?
Yes, I know. And about not too much speaking, it's also, of course, always say we don't pray for people, we speak. And if we speak healing, I don't use too much words for it.
No.
You can make it very complex.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so there was one moment, I only say Jesus, and I don't understand why.
That has everything in it.
Mhm.
And a year after that, because it was a person, if you ask for counseling and prayer,
We are ministering, yes.
ministering, and I always say Jesus, not more. And a year later, she told me, that name, you always say that name. It blessed me so deep and so much.
I wonder why.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. But yes, yesterday I love history, so I was in a setting here and in our village.
A lecture, yeah.
And a lecture of our history. And then
Mhm.
after the history, I met a man, and I was so looking, and he must know Jesus, and it was. So we have a little talk, and then he told his wife has back problems.
Yeah.
So, oh, well, that's interesting. And he prayed a lot for her, but she didn't heal. So I told him, well, if you are okay and your wife's okay, you can call us, you can come to you can visit us, and you can speak to each other. And I hope I can help her. And I gave two testimonies about healing, and that's all. So it was a very nice conversation. So I come back. First, I told the last story and then about history, but yeah. So, yeah. But then also I have to fix my words. Juiste woorden spreken. I have to choose. I have to choose my words correctly and precise, and I always pray that there's love in, there's an inviting in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, the Bible talks about when you pray, let your words be few.
Yes.
Yeah.
Specifically said that. Interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes, that's where you started.
I didn't quote the scripture actually, but I
No,
just
it's-
remembered, as you said, that when you
Yeah.
pray, let your words be few.
But you started with let your words be few, something like that. I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, again, it's about when you have a personal conversation, when you teach, then I suggest that you would go down the points.
Mhm.
And it's not about the shortness or the length, although if you keep your teaching short, it's easier for people to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most people don't know how to take notes. That's the other thing. So don't count on it that people know how to take notes. Very few people do. And it
Yeah.
takes practice. I learned it for the
Oh,
past.
yeah.
You learned it in school, but
Yes.
those of us who haven't been in school for a while, you kind of, and then of course the technology and things like this change, but I stick to pen and writing.
Yeah.
And then I was
It
in
is-
the council, always, yeah.
It is
Because
much
that's
better
connection. It is
because
better.
there is a connection between your
Yeah.
brain and the movement of your pencil.
Yes.
So that's why I always take notes. I
Yeah.
write books.
Yes, yes, it
Yeah,
is.
and it's better than typing.
Yes,
Yes.
much better.
Yes,
Yes.
there's one
Better
of
slower, perhaps, but better. Yeah. So I
Yeah,
learned it
but-
also to take notes always.
I can write very fast, and I cannot type that fast. So for me, writing is better.
Good for you.
And
Okay.
not even I miss a few sentences
Yeah.
of God.
from the man of God when he speaks. Three
Well,
sentences
taking
fast.
notes doesn't mean that you prescribe, you transcribe. It doesn't mean, but you taking notes is actually, you put down the gist of it. You put down the essence of what the person is saying.
Yes.
Of course, when it comes to quotes, you want to write it word for word, verbatim. But taking notes, it's very good also for many reasons. Not just to call to make sure that you remember, but also because you immediately in your mind you summarize.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, you make a structure.
Yeah,
What you-
it
what you
really, yeah, that's why when people know how to take notes, they also know how to think.
So that is so true.
It
Yes.
helps. It helps.
There's one of the universities in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And that professor told people your laptops are
Close.
closed.
Good.
Phone is closed. You take your pencil and your
Notebook.
Most people don't even know how to write
and
cursive.
you have to write.
Yeah.
Because he told them if you listen and write, then you have the connection.
Yeah, it's true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm
That's
very
great.
glad with this teaching this evening.
Very good one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when you think about it, you hear what's being said, then you have to think about what you want to write down, and then you need to write it down. So that's already 3 things you've done. And then, like you had said also, Princess Reka, you summarize. You very often you summarize what's being said. So that's the 4th thing. And so that really causes you to not only think, but also helps you to remember much more easily. If a person were to, let's say, bring a laptop into a class and just turn on the voice, you know how you can voice text, so as it's being spoken, it just types it out for you. It bypasses you completely.
Yeah.
You can see it and you can hear it, but you can actually completely be somewhere else in your thoughts
Yeah.
and completely ignore, not even on purpose. I'm not saying you're doing it on purpose, that anyone who does that, but that you can completely ignore what's being said. It doesn't become part of you. It doesn't actually go through you, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
That's true.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, for someone who maybe doesn't have arms and legs or whatever, and
Yeah.
that But they would also think differently, I think, also
Yeah, I
because
think so.
they would have to process things
Yeah.
differently. You know what I mean?
Very true.
So yeah.
Well, there was an old preacher a long time ago in our one of our churches we ministered, and Alexander had already a story about him, but he was really reformed, but got the Holy Spirit, received the Holy Spirit, and he said, "Listen, God gave us one mouth and two ears."
Yes.
Mhm.
And yeah, that says it all.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Very
very
true.
true. Yeah.
And it's increasingly harder and harder to find people who know how to listen. Because
Yeah.
just because you're quiet, it doesn't mean that you actually listen. It just means you're quiet. But if you can actively listen, and I'm not saying memorize, but you do want to retain some information from what you heard, especially if it's a personal story and you want to ask questions, relevant questions, and to kind of guide the conversation into, even when you are in a helping position, also as a counselor, you have to do the same. And it's interesting that people nowadays have to pay for someone to listen. And that's what therapists usually do, isn't it?
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Because they can never give you a direct advice. They can just ask, okay, so how did that make you feel? Anybody, a friend could do that as well, and you don't have to pay them. But now it seems like you have to pay people to even listen. It's such a sad state of affairs, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, that's so true. And even in our family, we talk to each other, and we have 5 children, so they are used to speak their own story, and then the other have to speak their story. So
Yeah,
we
yeah.
are trying to connect the story and to
Yeah.
say, I have who told me this, and then you ask a question. So we train that as we train our training as little family with 5 children and spouse and grandchildren, to listen to each other and to respond about what
Mhm.
people say to each other. Yeah,
Not always easy.
that's not always
No.
easy, but especially when much people around us. But
Like I said,
It's-
we're still learning.
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. It's very
Yeah.
important to keep learning in life.
yeah,
Yeah, very true.
And you can
One- Go ahead.
only learn when you listen.
Mhm.
That's true.
That's right.
That's very true. I was just thinking that one of oversharing, if you think when you I like lawyer and like legal dramas, because you can learn a lot from it. So I would watch
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, you can learn a lot. But
I
one
love
of the
that.
things that you can when a witness is called to stand, when a witness is called to the stand, and the lawyers always tell them, don't talk too much,
Mhm.
because the prosecutor will pick up on it and will just
Yeah.
tear you apart. You only answer what you were asked, not more. If they want to ask you, then you can
Short answers.
continue that thing, but don't overshare.
Mhm.
Just what I learned it so well, that always keep straight and to the point. Don't give more information, don't volunteer information, don't give more information than what you should.
Mhm.
And because even in a legal setting, they tear you apart, and they will just
Yeah, oh, yeah.
the
Oh,
more you
yeah.
talk,
Yeah.
the more they will find something that they can put their hook into, and then they will just tear you apart.
Mhm. That's true.
Mhm.
Yeah, same with when a police officer were to
Oh yeah.
pull you over, let's
Same
say,
thing.
or you're at a truck stop or something. Do you know why I pulled you over today? Well, you can answer that all wrong. It's probably better to say,
I
no,
have no idea.
that's it. No,
I haven't done anything wrong. I haven't done anything wrong.
exactly. There was a lady
Great
police
story.
officer who was telling me a story about how there was a man driving a vehicle, and he was driving too fast, and she decided to give him a warning. And so he walked, so that meant he wouldn't get a ticket. So he walked up to her window, to his window. She walked up to his window, sorry. And she went to ask him, do you know why I pulled you over today? And he started just blah, 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 blah. And he had a cigarette and he flicked it at her. And so she says, never mind, he's getting a ticket. So he didn't realize he actually was just going to get a warning, and he could have driven away. He overreacted and just started blah, blah, blah. And who do you think you are?
His mouth ran away with him.
He ended up getting a ticket that he wouldn't have gotten. Yeah.
You can learn it the hard way, or you can learn it the easy way. Easy way is if you listen to us. Hard way is if you just find out yourself how your mask can get into your trouble. But isn't that interesting that really most of the times you can never get into trouble if you don't talk.
Yeah.
Or if you say very little. It's always when you talk too much. Always.
Yeah.
So oversharing, whether it's about yourself or your situation or someone else, never a good idea.
Yeah. And it's funny too, you know, I do a lot of driving as part of my job. And so I get to watch a lot of how people react to different things. And when there is a police officer on the side of the road, so many people, even though they're not doing anything wrong, the police officer is over, he has his lights on, he's pulled somebody else over. Everybody else can just go the normal speed and everybody else can mind their business. He's just doing his thing or her thing. And people slow down and they pull over and they do all kinds of things. And you can tell it's kind of like this guilty conscience. What if I did something wrong? Is he going to pull me over too? No, mind your business. Just keep going. But it happens over and over again. And I think when we relate that to a conversation, when something maybe comes up and a person tries to defend themselves and they're talking too much and they're doing all this kind of stuff, just don't have to be so concerned about all that. If
it's always suspicious when someone talks too much, isn't it?
Yeah. So if there is an issue, instead, just either bring it up to someone who's trustworthy or just sit there and listen and learn, and maybe you'll gain some wisdom to help you overcome that. You don't have to just blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
So, any last words?
No, I think that's good.
Good. Praise God. Okay. Mark, would you like to close in prayer?
Yes. Father, I thank you for this time that we were able to come together again. We're so thankful for one another, and we're thankful for you and what you have done and what you continue to do in our lives. Father, I thank you that all the listeners of this will be touched, that you yourself will touch their heart, touch their mind. And Lord, any struggle in anyone's life, you are the answer. And I thank you, Lord God, that everyone will gain something by this conversation. And anyone who doesn't know you, that they will get to know you in an intimate way. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah, you kind of froze, so I wasn't sure if you finished. Okay, well, we'll see you next week. So this has been another edition of the Royal Club. We discussed how we should be quick to listen and slow to talk, because that will never get you into trouble. So we'll see you next week at the same time. God bless you. You have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.
Right.
God